want to cover some basics here of what this year's doing for us. I mean, welcome everybody that is here. We're glad to see all the friendly faces over the weekend. You know, we started with safety classes. We started early this morning with safety seminars, and everybody I've been running into. I mean, even in the hotel, take a ride down the other day, and I'm like, hey, you here for the show? And their answer was yes. And I said, where are you from? And it was Johannesburg. And I was like, first person I asked where they're from was an international. So I'm really feeling good about how things are going to roll out for the rest of this week. You know, the city here, we came down and did the recon, you know, with the food, the hospitality, all the sporting events that are around. I mean, there could be no better town than to come back after a pandemic than Dallas. So we're really glad to be here. You know, certainly the partnership with Longhorn Helicopters, you know, to see the city. One of my intent was to try to get as many helicopters flying around while we're in here. And so if you haven't taken advantage of that, there's still some more opportunities for the rest of the week to get out and actually fly a helicopter in the vicinity, you know, 30-minute tours and other things that are available. So please take advantage of them and get out and see the city. Of course, this region does have a lot of helicopter rotorcraft things here. We got Safran, we got Airbus, we got Bell. And a lot of the suppliers, as when the floor opens up tomorrow and you walk around and you see all the support that's necessary to keep this industry growing is here. We've got, I think we're going to have some numbers here, but the pandemic recovery is ongoing. I mean, even some of the things we did this year, if you've been to other shows, we prepared to operate it if the pandemic was still going on. And so you'll see we're doing a little reaction. We don't have the type of food stuff that we had prior to the pandemic, but all the other good things as far as safety classes and opportunities for education are certainly all there. Where do the people need help? You'll see some of the things we've been doing in the last year is the SMS program. We also have the 135 operators and some of the stuff we did with the air carrier protection program. That was, you know, those were big hits that happened during the pandemic that our operators needed some help, and our government affairs did a great job, I think, for the industry, and we're getting good feedback. So those are some of the numbers that we took. And then, you know, the Healthy Expo. As I said, we set up to be able to have some of that social distancing in there. You see the stuff that's in the bags that have masks and have hand sanitizers. Please just don't totally give up on staying safe. But it was great to see that the mask requirements relaxed, so that everybody can remember what everybody looks like again, to have actually a full face, and it's been great. And then back to business. You know, we're built on relationships. The words I've used, a couple people like, are that, you know, I call this a homecoming. And I already, earlier this morning, I was at the rescue summit that was going on, and you know, after I said hello to them, I had a crew chief from the 160th, my days in the early 1990s, came up to me, and you know, that's what he's doing now, and it was all about, you know, what have you been doing? You know, that's only what, 30 years ago. So I mean, what have you been doing the last 30 years? Good to catch up with you. So glad to see that Heli-EXPO helps with a lot of that relationship building. We even got a famous guy in the audience right here. And so, you know, 2020 is shaping up well, and we're going to see that tomorrow. Over 600 booths are out there, and the attendee registration right now, we had, when I asked yesterday, was over 10,000 and growing. So we really expect the numbers to continue. We're certainly hitting social media a lot this year, more than we've done in the past, and we'll see how that plays out. But we've got everything we have here, I think, for the industry to make, you know, over $2 billion worth of business on the floor there. So we hope that comes true. The pandemic, you know, through the whole pandemic, you know, when we did cancel the show last year, we've got feedback from a lot of the members that say, hey, we've been working all year long. We were looking forward to going to New Orleans last year. So why did you cancel? You know, we had to do what we had to do to keep things safe. And so this year we're back with a vengeance here in Dallas, and you know, everybody is still working. I think the industry is up. We're hearing good numbers from the OEMs on production, so look forward to you guys seeing some of those numbers as the floor opens. The upward trend in manufacturers I just talked about, the Gamma report that came out with the piston helicopter sales up 27%, 181 aircraft sold, and billings of over $80 million. So things are looking up for industry. The events, we did have our back in-person event in Boise, and that went over well. We worked with the European Helicopter Association. HAI and the European Helicopter Association now have agreement to work together, and you'll see a lot of collaboration going on here on the floor with us and the European Helicopter Association, as well as the European Rotors that'll take place in November of this year. The 5G, I've seen a lot of the headlines. It really was something that our team was working on for a long time. We put in for some exemptions to try to help with the air medical service, which were approved by the FAA, but there's also other operators right now that are still being penalized because the FAA and the telecom industry didn't do a lot of sharing of information early on. And we're still, working. I already hit up the 4 guys from the FAA that were in the safety seminar this morning about, how can we do what we tried to do, which is HAI wasn't only going after one segment, but we actually submitted an exemption that would help all of our members, and it got pared down to just the medical services, essentially where I think the FAA and others felt they would get the most heat versus trying to take care of all of our members. So we're still pushing on that, and still work to be done on the 5G side. The leaded fuel issue is something we were just in DC last week or the week before, and it's called EAGLE, Eliminating Aviation Gasoline Lead Emissions. So we agree that we have to have an environmentally friendly industry, and that's one of the things we're working on with the low lead. And then also community compatibility and the stuff we're working on with our air tour operators. There's a lot of pressure right now to try to really cut back on the tours over a lot of the national parks, but yet at the same time, when we talk to those members that are providing those services to society, and as soon as I mention it to, again, non-aviation people that they talk about, yeah, I just took a helicopter ride when I was at this national park, and it's got to tell them that's going away. We really have to get some support from the people that use those opportunities, people that can't go out and do the walking and hiking, but need the support of the helicopter community to get out and see the beautiful national parks out there. The accidents, I think everybody in this room probably wasn't 2 or 3 weeks ago where we had 4 helicopter accidents that hit the national news. One on the East Coast down by Florida. We had one on the West Coast with the police. We had the National Guard with the Blackhawks, and then we had a fatality in Hawaii as well with some of the support there with the Navy. So it's something that we definitely want to keep our eye on. Hopefully as you walk into the show, you see the big safety rotor challenge area, and that's where we pulled together a lot of things of what are the common factors that are causing the accidents, and they'll try to address them in the rotor safety challenges and in the rotor safety booth there. So there's the zone. That's what it's going to look like. You can't miss it. It does have a nice helicopter in there this year, and it's going to be a pre-flight challenge. So I think they've got that helicopter rigged to see if you can do a good pre-flight and find out what the errors are prior to flying that. Good stuff there. And if the opportunity too, if there's something you want to do for safety, it's an opportunity to join the safety working group. SMS program I mentioned earlier, it's it's one of the things that as far as 135 operators, it's something that Congress, the NTSB, the FAA said is coming, and so our members are asking for help, and we went out and we got contracts with 2 providers, again knowing that every operator is a little bit different, so we wanted to make sure they had a choice, and so they will have a choice with those operators. The ASAP, addressing the Aviation Safety Action Program, those are other programs that we try to help facilitate with the FAA and the NTSB and others. And then you got the Flight Risk Assessment Tool, an ability to actually go out and help you identify, what are the things that are hazardous today, and then what is the risk, what's the proper decision for that risk. Is it at a low level or does it become medium or high risk, where you should have other leadership involved in making the decision to launch that flight. The international organization, I said briefly that European Helicopter Association and HAI. Yesterday was the first time. I'm trying to get my days messed up already since I've been here since Wednesday. But yesterday I had the European Helicopter Association basically reported in to HAI's board on the work that we're doing together and the collaboration. And it is about the collaboration because aviation is globally connected, and HAI wants to be that facilitator of the safety conversation as well as the prosperity conversation of how we can work together around the globe. And then flying into the future, advanced air mobility, you hear that as a new name, but helicopters and rotorcraft have been doing that since the 50s, and now we're transitioning. And when Ed Bolin and I from the NBAA, National Business Aircraft Association, talk about it, we talk about the people that came in a big airliner, a 121, to get to point A to point B. Once they get there, they might take a business jet for a smaller move. After the business jet comes a helicopter. Helicopter gets you further, heavier, and then you get down to maybe the future vehicles that everybody's talking about and get you right downtown. And so with all that comes the infrastructure that, right now our Congress has said that they're going to put some money towards infrastructure, but we're still wrestling with not losing infrastructure with airports and heliports, let alone trying to grow them. So right now there's an industry day going on here at the show with a lot of those future vehicle manufacturers, and we're trying to work together on an engineering brief that came out for future vertiports and heliports from the FAA, and make sure that we're going to have access for all is what we're after. So AAM at the expo this year, we've had a lot of conversation. We don't, I don't know, Mike, did we get any future vehicles on the floor at all this year?
John has a mock-up.
Okay, so we got a mock-up, but we definitely are pushing, we didn't get it this year, but next year we want to start getting some of these vehicles in there. Because as a Helicopter Association International, we feel that we've operated the environment that all of these business plans of the future are suggesting that they're going to operate on. We still have challenges today with infrastructure, but yet, the future infrastructure to help these new vehicles goes beyond the infrastructure the helicopters need to be successful today. So I'm still using words like, let us be the test case for what you want to do with AAM vehicles with helicopters today, because they are going to have that vertical lift capability. And if there's something you want to try, that we ought to be able to do it today. But as I was, I had an opportunity this morning to talk to Member Graham from the NTSB. We still have challenges in New York when you hear a lot of the flights for VFR into IMC conditions, where we've got heliports in New York where a helicopter can't launch on an FR flight plan into the weather. They're taking off and they're holding by the Statue of Liberty doing circles waiting for clearance to get in the clouds. So there's stuff we have to solve still today with infrastructure before we can get to the future with AAM. And with that, that's kind of an overview of what we got going on. I'd be glad to take any questions from anybody. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jim, Mark Hibbert. How many reports of 5G interference have you received from operators, and what's your next move on the subject?
Kay, do you know how many numbers? Did we get any? I mean, it was a very low, if any, we were trying to figure out.
We set up a portal for people to report. We set up a portal for companies, operators to report to us. They are held reporting directly to the FAA.
But do we get any? How many numbers?
We did get a few. But most of those reports are going directly to the FAA.
So one of the things on the helicopter, which I've been talking to FAA on, is that if a radar altimeter, remember radar altimeters became required by a rule, but as part of that, when a helicopter got STC'd, if it got STC'd to put a radar altimeter in, more than likely it wasn't connected to anything else on that aircraft. Now the newer aircraft, just like the 737s and some of the issues they had with the fixed wing, where they're fully integrated, there may be an issue, and some of the OEMs are addressing where they're fully integrated. But I would like the FAA to step up and tell me that any aircraft that has an STC radar altimeter, it's not affected by all the issues, because it should, even if it is affected, just turn it off. It was required by our rule. Let's not have to apply that rule if they think there's an issue.
Okay, so that's your next thrust with the FAA then?
Yes.
To get that wider?
Either that, or it's also, rulemaking, which we all know takes forever, is the fact that it's not performance-based. Anytime you have a rule that requires a piece of equipment, instead of what is the purpose of that piece of equipment, it leads to problems like we have with the radar altimeter. Any other questions? All right.